Okay, so now continuing on to proportions. So the equality of two ratios is called proportion. So if you have a ratio A is to B and another ratio C is to D, and if both of them are equal, then that is called a proportion. So in total, the proportion is going to have four terms. So A, B, C, and D. Over here, A and D are called extremes, whereas B and C are called means over here. Now, proportions have some properties as well. The first property is that means of proportional are interchangeable. That means that if you have it in this form, A, B, C, and D, the mean over here, you can replace them. So C can come over here. Let me just write this down. So that means that you can interchange these means over here. So you can replace B by C or C by B. So you could even write it A is to C and B is to D. That would still be equal. You can use two dots or you can use this over here. Product of means is equal to product of extremes. Now, the product of means means B multiplied by C. So B multiplied by C is equal to the product of extremes, which is A multiplied by D. So these are some of the properties. Now let's move ahead to the questions. There are two types of proportion, direct and inverse, or we can also call it indirect proportion. Okay, so direct proportion is when two quantities are so related to each other that an increase or decrease in one causes a corresponding increase or decrease in the other is called direct proportion, which means that let's say if you have two variables, A and B, this means that when A is going to increase, B is also going to increase. Similarly, when A is going to decrease, B is also going to decrease. So this is called direct proportion. The movement is going to be in the same direction. Now, for example, we have a 5 chair cost 1875, then find the cost of 12 chairs. So we have two variables over here. One is number of chairs. So we have 5 and 12, and then we have the total cost. So we know that 5 chairs, they cost 1875, and we do not know the cost of 12 chairs. So we'll just write it X over here. Then now if you think as the number of chairs are going to increase, so is the total cost going to increase. That means that the proportion over here is direct. So if number of chairs will increase, so will the total cost over here increase. Now if that is the case, then if we write it in the form of a proportion, that means 5 is to 12 is equal to the proportion that we have for cost. So that is 1875 is to X. Now we can solve it over here. So we can write it in the form of fraction. So this will become 5 over 12, 1875 over X. Now we want to keep X on one side and everything else should go on the other side. So the first thing we'll do, we'll cross multiply. So this X will go and multiply over there. So we have 5X. This 12 will go and multiply over here. So 12 times 1875. Now you can see this 5 is multiplying over here. So when it will shift to the other side, it is going to divide. So 1875 divided by 5. And if you solve this, you will get an answer of 4,500. So for 12 chairs, the cost is going to be 4,500. Now, inverse proportion is when two quantities are so related to each other that a decrease and increase in one causes a corresponding increase or decrease in the other is called inverse proportion. Now, what does this mean? Again, let's take two variables, let's say A and B. And now we're saying that when A increases, B actually reduces. Or when A decreases, B increases. So the change is going to be in the opposite direction. Therefore, we call it inverse or even indirect proportion. Now we have an example over here. So it takes 3 taps to fill a swimming pool in 12 hours. So information, we have taps and then we have time. So it takes 3 taps to fill a swimming pool in 12 hours. How long will it take 5 taps to fill the pool? So again, we do not know how much time it's going to take. Now over here, just think that if the number of taps are going to increase, that means that the water in the pool is going to fill in more quickly. That means that the time is going to reduce. So more taps mean that the pool will be filled in lesser time. So the proportion over here is inverse. Now, if it is inverse, that means if you're writing it in the form, in this form, you should make one of the side inverse. So instead of writing 12 is to x, now I'm going to write x is to 12, signifying that this is inverse over here. Now we will solve it in the same way as we did it with the previous one. So this is equals to x over 12. Now I want to keep x on one side, so I can simply just shift this 12 to the other side. So this is dividing over here, it is going to multiply over here. So I'll just do the next step over here. 3 times 12 divided by 5 will give me x. So this will come 7.2 hours. This is the value of x over here. Okay, so now coming on to compound proportion. Now compound proportion actually has a lot of different proportions in it. So if we look at this example, you'll see that we have multiple variables instead of just 2 variables over here. So we'll read the question and we'll also make the variables together. So annotation. Now if 10 men, so first we have men, if 10 men earn rupees 1800, so this is their earning, or we can call it cost, whatever you want. So this is 1800 in 18 days. So days are 18, working 6 hours a day. So we even have hours. How much will 15 men? So 15 men, how much means that we do not know the earning or the cost. In 24 days, working 8 hours a day. So now you can see we have 4 variables instead of just 2 variables. So the way to do this question is that the variable in which you have x, which is cost over here, you need to think in terms of this. So first thing is that you'll check that is each of the other variable directly proportional with cost or inversely proportional with cost. So we think about men. The more the men, the more would be the earning, the more would be the cost for us. So yes, this one is directly proportional. If you think about days, the more the days, the more would be the cost. Again, direct. The more the hours that they work, the more would be the total cost. So again, all of them are inversely proportional. So when they are inversely proportional, now we can form our data over here. So that means 10 is to 15. Then we have 18 is to 24. And then we have 6 is to 8. So all of the variables, I've written them together. And now the variable that had x, I'll write it on the other side. This is 1800 is to x. Now you see I did not flip anything over here because all of it were directly proportional. Now the next step that I will do over here is that I'll multiply all of these numbers that I've written over here together. That means 10 times 18 times 6 ratio 2, and similarly I'll multiply all of these variables now. So 15 times 24 times 8 is equal to 1800 is to x. I'll write it in the form of fractions. So where I have this ratio, that is the point where I can convert it into a fraction. 18 times 6, 15 times 24 times 8 is equals to 1800 over x. Okay, now that I have to convert it in terms of x, and if I cross multiply over here, so this is going to multiply here, and this is going to multiply here. That means I'll have 10 times 18 times 6 times x is equals to 1800 times 15 times 24 times 8. Now this is up to you. If you want to simplify this, you can multiply it over here and simplify, you'll get one number. Similarly, if you multiply all of them over here, you'll get one number. Or you can do it in this way as well. Now, these three, all of these values are multiplying over here. So if I shift it on the other side, it will go into division. So I'm going to do this working over here now. So the next step over here is x is equals to 1800 times 15 times 24 times 8, and all of this will go in division. So 10 times 18 times 6. This will give you 4,800. Now in this case, all of them were directly proportional. Now what could we do if one of them was inversely proportional? That's our next question. Okay, so now in this example, we have 15 men. So if 15 men do a piece of work in 20 days, in how many days will 10 men do 3 times as much work? Okay, so we do not know the days, and we also have one more variable for. Now over here it says in 15 men do a piece of work in 20 days. So we'll keep work as 1 in the original scenario. In how many days will 10 men do 3 times as much work? So if the ratio over here is 1:3, because they're going to do 3 times as much work as these 15 men were doing over here. Again, now this days over here is the one with which we will check whether it is direct or inverse. So the more men, the quicker they would do their work. So that means they would require fewer days. So the more the men, the fewer would be the days. That means we have inverse over here. And the more the work, the more days would be required, right? So the more work you have, the more days you would require. That means we have direct over here. So from this, we have established that men and days are basically inverse, and work and days have a direct relationship. Now that means when I'm writing this over here, now men and days, since it has inverse, I'm going to flip it while I'm writing it. So instead of writing 15:10, I'm going to write 10:15. I flipped it because it has an inverse relationship with days. Work has a direct, so that is going to be 1:3, the same. This is equals to 20:x. I'll do the same thing. So I'll multiply both of these values with 10 times 1. And because I have the ratio over here, I can write it in this form. 15:3 is equals to 20 divided by x. Now again, cross multiply. So 10 ones is 10. 15 threes is 45. So I've multiplied it before now. This will multiply on that side, and this would multiply here. So we have 10x is equals to 20 times 45. And now this 10 is going to divide on the other side. So 20 multiplied by 45 and by 10, 0 and 0 will get cancelled off. So x would come 90 days. Okay, so now over here, basically, we're supposed to calculate proportional parts. So we will be given an amount and the ratio, and we need to divide basically this amount into different parts. So the formula to do this is that you take the ratio of part divided by the total amount and you multiply this. So if you have total over here, you need the total amount for multiplication as well to get it. So for example, over here we have divide the amount of 5,400. This is the total amount between 3% in the ratio 2:3:4. The first step is that we need to calculate the total of this ratio. So the total of the ratio is 2 plus 3 plus 4. So that gives us a 9. And now over here, we know that the total is 9. And this is the total amount that we need to divide. Now the part. So if you want to calculate it for the second part, you're going to put 2 over here in the numerator. And you would simply multiply to get 1,200. So this is the share of the person who has this ratio. Similarly, you want to calculate it for the person who has third of the ratio. So that would be third over 9 multiplied by 5,400. So this would give you 1,800. And if you want to calculate it for the fourth one, then this would be the amount for the fourth one. Now the sum of all of these three should again be equal to 5,400. So this is how you have distributed that amount of money. Now you're supposed to divide again 6,350 in the ratio. Now the problem over here is that we have a fraction over here. So the first thing that we should do is we should try to eliminate this fraction from here. The annotation. So we have the ratio 1,4:1,7:1,9. Now I want to finish this off from fraction. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the LCM of 4, 7, and 9. So the LCM of 4, 7, and 9, simply you'll get it by multiplying all of them, is going to come 252. And then I'm going to multiply each of this LCM by each of them to eliminate it from a fraction into a number. So 252, 1:7 multiplied by 252, and 1/9 multiplied by 252. So now I get 63:36:28. Now it's going to be solved in the same way. So first thing, we're going to calculate the sum. So 36 plus 28 gives you 127. And then we're going to distribute the sum. So for 63, we'll have 63 over 127 multiplied by 6,350, which will give us 3,150. And similarly, we'll do it for the second one and then for the third one as well. 28, 127, 1,400. So again, you can check that 1,400 plus 3,150 plus 1,800 should be equal to the sum of 6,350. Now I have gathered some MCQs that have come in the past papers. So let's see how proportion has been asked in the previous exam papers.